It was on this island that the alleged molestation of the young boys took place. 3 former NP ministers have been implicated. Only one is still alive.
So it's amazing. On the one hand, you've got all this beauty, and the anomaly of this is that you've now had this alleged pedophile ring that was operating in such a beautiful place. It's a crisis, you know.
This story is about a cop, Minnie, who investigated a pedo ring on Bird Island that allegedly involved high-ranking officials. Mark ended up dying a mysterious death, and his death was not the only life lost involving this ring. Since this does involve the essay of children, viewer discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed, the place we discuss rarely told true crime, usually right in my she shed, but I'm in my theater room today. As last time, my she shed is really cold. I have but a little heater in there, and it doesn't do much. So sometimes in the winter, I prefer to do filming inside my house. So I apologize that I'm not in my she shed. Since this is called Murder She Shed, I always feel bad about that. I don't know why. It's just silly. Anyway, could you help a girl out? Let your fingers do the walking right down to the subscribe and like button and push it. I mean, a nerdy girl could use all the help she can get in this big YouTube world. Thank you for always being so faithful to my channel. It all started when Mark was sitting in his office at the Port Elizabeth Police Department in South Africa, and a 14-year-old boy and his mother just walked into his office. They were clearly upset. The mother was saying something about her other son, who had been admitted into the local hospital because he almost bled to death from his rectum. A sadist known only as Big Ears to the boys had sexually penetrated her son with a pistol and shot him. The boys believed Big Ear was the head of the ring. The boys met Big Ears after the man known as Uncle Dave had actually introduced them. The older brother had met Uncle Dave while playing pool. Dave introduced himself to the young man and then took him to a secluded spot, and, well, he forced him to pleasure him. Soon the contact graduated from Dave getting pleasure to full-blown. The abuse moved from the car to either a hotel or Uncle Dave's office, and eventually the boy was flown over to Bird Island. When the boy's younger brother turned 12, he too began to hang out at the pool den on the weekends. Dave started forcing the younger brother to watch him have sex with the older brother. As the oldest grew older, Uncle Dave began to lose interest in him, preferring now the younger brother, who had just turned 13. Uncle Dave began passing the older sibling off onto his friends, and this is when they began flying to Bird Island. Mark was told that both of the women's sons had been brought to Bird Island with other children and were forced to entertain men, a whole group of men, an orgy of men, if I can say that on YouTube. A whole bunch of sick monsters. Bird Island is a beautiful nature reserve located 100 meters off the coast of Lambert's Bay on the west coast of the Cape. It is home to one of the last populations of African penguins, as well as the largest Cape Gannet colony and allegedly a ring of pedophiles, as you just found out. Uncle Dave would fly the boys to this island. While there, they met a man called Big Ears because of the size of, his ears. And he was an exceptionally cruel man. This is the man that actually shot the brother, inserted a gun up inside him, and shot him. I guess he got off on this kind of thing. Just horrible. For the kids, these trips were a bit of an adventure because the boys would be picked up in a helicopter. It was hugely exciting for the children, and once on the island, the boys would then be treated to a great party with plenty of food and alcohol. And we're talking about kids that didn't have a lot of money. They were not privileged. They came from poor backgrounds, and food was a delicacy to them. So to be able to brought onto this island was so exciting. And to even be in the helicopter was amazing. Most of their victims were young black boys. The trips to the island was disguised as fishing trips. One of the boys mentions the address to Mark of where the man known only as Uncle Dave lives. After arriving at the address, Mark knew exactly who Uncle Dave was. Dave Allen was well known in police circles. He's a police reservist holding the rank of lieutenant. He heads the police underwater diving unit. He also ran a guano project on Bird Island. He uses that bird poop to sell as fertilizers. Mark shows up to Uncle Dave's door and lets him know that he has a warrant and will be searching his home for images of children. You know what I mean. Inside Uncle Dave's bedroom closet, Mark finds a hidden compartment. Inside this little compartment, he finds, which at the time was illegal to possess in South Africa. Just regular was illegal. They also did find some child images. So Mark arrested Uncle Dave on 2 charges. The first for the illegal possession of, and the second for committing sexual acts with minors, also known as statutory. Because both brothers admitted that Dave had them, he was charged for both. Almost immediately, Uncle Dave starts to talk. In fact, he begins to sing like a canary. He makes astonishing revelations, but he's careful. At first, he refuses to mention any names. He's trying to place the major part of the blame at the feet of nameless people. Nameless, powerful men. And then he drops a bombshell. He mentions a name, and not just any name, but the name of a very powerful cabinet minister, along with 2 more cabinet ministers. After Uncle Dave is released, he appears at the 2 boys' house who had ratted him out, and he begins to harass them. He was almost arrested again for interfering with witnesses, but the police just told him just to go away and that he was not allowed to harass these boys or their mother. The following morning, Uncle Dave was supposed to make an appearance in court, but he was actually a no-show. The magistrate accordingly issues a warrant of arrest effective immediately. The next call Mark received was to tell him to go to the mortuary, because that's where Uncle Dave was. Uncle Dave had died by a bullet to his forehead. The ME ruled it as, but no gunpowder residue was found on Uncle Dave's hands. Only a few weeks later, another man Uncle Dave had pointed his finger at, who was said to be part of this ring, would end up dead too. On March 29, 1987, a Sunday morning, news broke out that South Africa's Minister of Environmental Affairs, John Walter Eddington Wiley, had been found dead on a single bed in his beloved home in the Cape. It was also ruled while his body was apparently discovered in a locked bedroom. However, no door key was ever found. Tests for gunpowder residues on both hands also proved to be negative. In addition, the firearm responsible for the demise of the deceased was found resting in the wrong hand. Dave and Wiley had met because of their interest in underwater and environmental conservation. The 2 men were said to have remained very close for nearly a decade. And then suddenly, they died less than a month apart, both violently of gunshot wounds. Officially, both had died by their own hands. The case was pretty much closed. Nothing could be proven. Then another teenage boy comes forward named William, and he admitted to the fact that Uncle Dave used to take him to Bird Island for group sex orgies. Dave had busted him for the possession of Mary Jane, and instead of charging him, Dave drove him to a quiet spot and forced him to perform OS on him. After that, Uncle Dave kept coming back for favors, always with the threat of arrest. Mark thought William may be the way he could finally find the big wig with the big ears. William was able to point out Wiley, Dave, and Magnus Malin as the men who were on the island with the boys. Magnus Malin was the man known as Big Ears.
They are jolly good fellows, for they are jolly good fellows, for they are jolly good fellows, and so say all of us.
Malin was the South African Defense Ministry for the government for 11 years between 1980 and 1991. After it was alleged that Malin was involved with this ring, the investigation quickly came to a halt. Mark's superior asked him why he was so obsessed with going after one of the most powerful men in the country, and his boss referred to it as a bloody mission. Mark stated that he had been raped by 2 men when he was just 12 and had never went to court. said, I know what these youngsters are going through. The senior prosecutor tells Mark to shut down the case, and his docket is removed from his desk. He is shunted off to Soweto to join the riot police, and one night, when he is switched from patrolling in a protected armored Casper to a more vulnerable Land Rover, a shot is deliberately fired at him through the window. The bullet hits his colleague, who the would-be assassins thought was Mark. Mark was supposed to have been driving. On the same night, his girlfriend Bernie also had an attempt on her life as her car goes up in smoke. Mark is eventually forced to resign and moves to China to become a teacher. 30 years later, he wrote a book about the Lost Boys of Bird Island. Minnie and his co-author Chris Stein had allegedly been investigating several leads subsequent to the book's publication, but were afraid to publish what they'd discovered.
I went to meet with other people. People had given me names of people to meet with in Port Elizabeth, and one was somebody who was high up in the National Party and related. His wife was related to a cabinet minister. He was in the fishing industry. He had the most damning information according to my sources. I met with him, and according to him, a young boy had been shot on the island, ended up in hospital in a critical condition, had an emergency operation, family was paid off, and according to him, some of the events on the island were witnessed by one of the lighthouse caretakers who wasn't as drunk as they thought he was, and was not beyond leopard crawling to go and spy on people. And
so
using
there were lots of witnesses to this.
This was a National Party.
It was a National Party deep throat.
After the release of the book, Mark came back to South Africa in order to promote his book. A week after arriving, Mark was found dead in a field at his friend's farm with a shot to the head. Firearm was found lying next to him. The firearm, however, did not belong to Mark. Mark's family said before his death, Mark was approached by many people with more damning evidence, which he planned to reveal in a follow-up book. Mark's family also said that Mark told them that if anything should happen to him, they must know it was done to him because he was not.
My cousins today, and to all of them, he expressed that his life was in danger, and that if anything did happen to him, we must know that it was done to him, not by himself.
The forensic investigator reached an inconclusive finding related to Mark's cause of death. She said she was prepared to accept a finding of but maintained there is a possibility he was forced to kill himself. Later, forensic results confirmed that gunshot residue was found on Mark's hands and clothing, as well as on the firearm. So eventually, she did rule it a. In 2020, Mark's book was no longer being sold, as it implicated one high-ranking official that was still alive. The publisher apologized that the book was ever released, stating that the contest's statements could not be verified independently. There was no hard proof that anything could be legally proven in the book. Co-author of the book, Chris Stein, took a polygraph test to prove the allegations in the book were true. She did pass the lie detector test. The case remains closed. The book disappearing into history, along with Mark's hard work on the case. It is left for us to wonder if Bird Island Pedo Ring really existed, and if all three of these men died by their own hands. What do you think about this story? Do you think it could have been real? There could have been a pedo ring on Bird Island? Just wanted to bring this case. I thought it's kind of odd that three men ended up dying in it. Now that my little granddaughter's made so much noise with her toy down below me, she was asleep when I began this, and then when I ended it, she was awake and making all kinds of noise. But we got through it. Her shirt says, "Silly boys, Kimmel is for girls." Huh. Tell them bye. Tell them you'll see them later. Say, who am I telling bye? I don't see anybody around here. I don't see. There's nobody over there. There's nobody over there. You weird, Grammy. I think someone's in here. It's just kind of weird, Grammy. Simon's outside waiting to ride the four-wheeler as normal. This is funny. Someone left a comment on one of my videos. You know how me and Simon, he likes to chase me on the four-wheeler? Somebody said that was so cruel that he was chasing me on that four-wheeler. in the snow. And I'm like, you mean it's cruel to me because I didn't want to be out in the snow? I'm doing it for my dog. He forced me to. Someone would run that four-wheeler 24 hours a day. If it was cruel to anybody, it was cruel to me because I begged him not to go out in that snow. I did not want to. But he's always got to have his way. And if anybody knows me, they know I'm not cruel to my dog. My dogs are spoiled. And if you watch my videos very much, you know that's true. That was just actually the funniest comment I've ever had. I guess that's why I mentioned it. All right, we love y'all. We'll see you next time at the Murder She Said.